Trapped between two worlds, wild and domestic, over 50 million of them wander the streets, parks, and alleyways of America, with tens of millions more worldwide. Where did they come from? How did they get here? And more importantly, where and how do they fit into our society?
Feral cats live everywhere around us. We all know them. They're alley cats, barn cats, and we've all seen them. And they've lived around humans for thousands of years, and they do quite well. They're not socialized to humans, so their home is outside with their family groups called colonies.
Feral cats come from the offspring of the cats that we own. You know, when we have a cat and we don't alter it, and then it just sort of goes in and out of the house and has a litter of cats, and then those cats then start another cycle, and they're sort of living along the shadows and in the corners and under the sheds, and they continue to exist and breed, and in fact in some cases thrive and actually increase in population.
One day on top of the hill I saw a mother cat with 2 kittens. So I started feeding them. Then I saw another cat and another cat. And then I realized we have a problem. Nobody's fixing them.
Near a wind-blown hill in Tiburon, California, Tovey Hiller spots one of these cats along the road leading to her home. It's one of many dozens of homeless cats that have taken up residence in her neighborhood. This is not her first effort at trapping, fixing, and releasing feral cats. It started years before, when a similar cat was lucky enough to have crossed her path.
And then I've been trapping cats ever since. I've done a lot of mistakes. Put too much food in, put too much food too close to the opening of the crate instead of putting it all the way in the back of the crate. I've sat for 2 seconds, 5 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours waiting for these cats. And I'll bring a book. I'll bring a book on tape so I can sit and listen or read. The neighbors are used to seeing me now sitting in a car, and they know that, uh-oh, the cat lady's at it again. I have been trapping cats for about 5 or 6 years, and I have now done about 250.
Oh, it's all right. There you go. There you go.
Feral cats take up residence where food and shelter are available, and military bases seem to provide both. But when the bases close and the people leave, how do they fend for themselves? Treasure Island, a former U.S. naval base on San Francisco Bay.
The Navy families moved out in 1997, and those families who lived in the houses, they were feeding the cats. They were doing a good job. In fact, it was almost tongue-in-cheek. You could say that every house came with a cat because a family would move in and there's their cat on the back step.
Greg Corning works at the Coast Guard Vessel Traffic Service on adjoining Yerba Buena Island.
People were nice. They would feed the cats, and I guess that system works until they close the base and everybody moves out all at once. And when that happened, all the cats started coming out of the woodwork.
While the San Francisco SPCA worked to trap and neuter the cats, Greg built and serviced a number of feeding stations on both islands.
This is the first shelter I built, and it's one of the simplest, and it's been out here about 2.5 winters now. It's been pretty serviceable, and it's simple enough, I think, that anybody can come up with something just as good, if not better. And we have a hinged lid, make it openable, and gives the feeders access to the water and food dishes. Originally it had just one door, and then I found that the cats did not feel safe going in here without another way in and out. So I put a second door on the opposite side. Here it's warm enough that the only real problem we had was keeping the food from getting soaked every time it rained in the winter. So that's why it's not necessary to have more than just one of these at each feeding area.
The feral cats on Treasure Island outnumbered the 2 shelters that Greg had built for them, and many of them made their way through the half-mile of dense brush and trees, and ending up on Greg's doorstep at the vessel traffic service.
The Navy prevailing feeling was, well, leave them alone and they'll go away, and I couldn't really live with that. Then the rainy season hit and I realized it didn't really feel good about putting food out and having cats just get soaked while they're trying to eat the food. So I made this shelter and did the trick, at least up here. This is Coast Guard property, and they said, sure, no problem whatsoever. And in fact, the people in the command at the vessel traffic service here and down at the group, Coast Guard group at the bottom of the island, are very supportive and have actually sought help about what to do about the cat problems.
The efforts to care for the Treasure Island cats extended far beyond Greg, the Coast Guard, and the SPCA. All of this care and concern came from individuals who volunteered their time and efforts to see that these cats got what they needed. Wilbur Lee is the co-owner of Pet Club, a chain of pet food stores in Northern California.
A lady that shops here came in and told me that she had heard cats being abandoned in Treasure Island, and she was feeding these cats on her own. She asked us for help and asked if she could put a barrel, put a bin in the store so that people can donate to the food and make it a little bit easier for her, because she was using her own money. She was spending something like $100 a week on feeding the cats. So I said, fine, anything to help out, I'll do. I have placed bins in all the stores that I have, and I have given talks to small groups of people who want to know more about the situation.
When volunteers coordinate their efforts and their dedication, it's astounding what can be done. Since 1992, the Feral Cat Coalition in San Diego, California, has organized monthly Feral Fix programs where caretakers can bring their feral cats for free spaying and neutering. Since its inception, the coalition has averaged over 2,000 feral cat spays and neuters every year. Sunday morning, 8 a.m. The caretakers begin filling the parking lot of the Rancho San Diego Animal Hospital, the use of which has been donated by the owners for the entire day. Caretakers come in from all communities surrounding San Diego.
Just make sure that even if they're here,
Lori Dahl is the supervisor for today's program. Each crate is identified with the name of the caretaker, and 2 identical tags are created.
This one is going to go around the cat's neck. This one will stay on the trap. Once the cat is out of the trap and it's going through its stuff inside, the trap will go outside and we'll line it up numerically. So when the cat's done, we'll take the tape off of the cat's neck and put the cat back into the correct trap.
By 8:30, nearly half the parking lot is filled with cat crates, over 130 in all.
Let's bring the traps in first, because they're easier in anesthesia, and that way we can kind of get going. Okay.
New volunteers get a last-minute overview from Lori, and before they know it, the process is underway.
Yeah, these are waiting to be done. I think most of them are boys. Do you have any notes in here too?
No, they're all boys.
They're all boys.
One female due last.
Okay. Cats come in here to anesthesia. I think when you're setting up an initial clinic and you haven't been to that hospital before, you need to find a room for anesthesia that has doors on it, just in case somebody escapes. Yes, indeed. And they drive down from Big Bear every time, so they are our saviors. Sorry, baby. It'll be over soon.
The eyes, cats don't blink when they're anesthetized, so the eyes would dry out without the lubricant in there.
Okay.
Again, this is a large clinic, so we have 2 areas set up for the space. And you can see we use both ends of the table so we can maximize the space in there.
Number 2.
The process is well orchestrated from years of trial and error, and the volunteers all have specific jobs in this assembly line of cats. The medical team is made up of veterinarians and vet students, all volunteering their time and talents.
Okay, Kathy, I have to. New instruments. Transport!
Oh, it's pretty cute cat. Come here. Ooh, big one.
Once the surgery is done, the cats are taken outside where they are medicated as needed, treated for fleas and ticks, and harmlessly ear-tipped to confirm when released back to their colony that they have already gone through the process.
I've been involved with feral cats for about 7 years, I guess now, 5, 6, 7 years. And I don't know, I mean, it's a good cause, it's a great group to work with, and there's obviously a need for it. Yeah, and you can see here that all these are all volunteers. They all just love cats and they help the cause, and I think you can find those people anywhere.
I think that's really about it. Then the caretakers show up at 2:30, and again, we'll make them line up. Any questions that people have, a lot of times we give them the list of how to care for the cat afterwards, and they just need some reassurance on how to release the cat and make sure everybody's safe. Yeah, she might have just had.
It is not unusual during these feral fix days for kittens to be born.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
While they are immediately taken for special care and feeding, often the process is to transfer them to individuals whose specialty is to care for them until such time when they can be adopted out. Patty Dyson has been caring for feral kittens for over a dozen years.
These little guys, they were 2 days old perhaps when I got them. They were from a mom who apparently died, and they were lucky enough to be found. And the 3 of them are in very good shape. We're going to give this guy a little bath. And, everyone has different techniques. My philosophy is we got to get it done quickly because usually I have a lot of them. And so I'll get the water comfortably warm, tepid, and sometimes I'll take them and put them in the sink, like this, and wash them. And then we'll give him a little dry here. And he says, "Oh, Ma. Ma. Oh, my. Yes." I get him nice and dry, as dry as you can get him. The weather is warm right now, and they'll go back onto the heating pad, so if he's not perfectly dry, it's going to be okay with him. And now that he's been such a good boy, he gets something to eat. And I like to wrap them up because they have a tendency to occasionally surprise you by peeing on you as soon as they get nicely relaxed. And different people have different techniques. What works most of all for me, most of the time, is to hold them up. And I tend to hold them upright like this. And bottle in mouth.
The process is a little different when an adult feral cat is found with older kittens. With the help of the San Francisco SPCA, Lisa Enns undertakes the long process of trapping the mother and all 5 of her kittens.
And set it so when they walk in on this, the door will shut.
Several weeks ago, my husband let the dogs out on the back deck, and they were scratching at the deck. And he looked down and saw 3 little kittens in there. And we figured that a cat had kittens back there, so we got the dogs to go away and we called the SPCA a couple of days later. They gave me ideas on what to do here, like who to get a hold of, and I contacted one of the cat rescue groups and talked with them on the phone, and they told me about this whole trapping program that they have for the feral kittens. And watching out the window there, I saw there was a total of 5 kittens. Because they would come out at times and play at the back of the deck, and the mother cat would come in and out of the yard and play with them as well. So I got a hold of them and they set me up with, well, first she told me to start feeding them. So they got used to eating and stopped weaning. And then she set me up with one of their people who came out and gave me some traps and showed me how to set them up and to start trapping them.
And this one I put the dish that I've been feeding them in lately, thinking that maybe they would recognize the dish and then want to come in here. We caught the mother cat yesterday, so we're trying to get the babies today.
I've never done this before in my life, and I've never even had a cat before in my life. But because we have 2 dogs, we needed to get them out of the yard because my dogs don't like cats at all, I'm afraid. And they will go after them. So they'll be going to the SPCA. Well, they'll socialize them and then adopt them out to homes.
While a vast majority of feral cat programs are undertaken by average people, many municipally run shelters and animal care facilities are developing their own procedures for humane feral cat management. John Cicerelli is the director of the San Jose Animal Care Center, whose efforts are geared toward a program called Feral Freedom.
When you look at animal shelters, particularly traditional animal control, we don't routinely have very good outcomes, particularly for feral cats. Feral cats are almost uniformly euthanized in animal shelters today. So you're left with a relatively large percentage of the cat population that's coming into the shelter with no real positive outcome. And so Feral Freedom offered some hope. The basics of the program are that when a cat is admitted into the animal shelter and we identify it as being behaviorally a feral cat, but otherwise a healthy cat, then that cat qualifies for a release. But before we release it, we're going to spay and neuter it and vaccinate it. The nonprofit rescue group then takes those cats back to the communities from where they were trapped and brought into the shelter.
After the cats are released back into the neighborhood where they were trapped, the caregivers go from home to home in the surrounding area with a flyer they attach to the front door. It informs neighbors of the Feral Freedom program and that the cats they may see in their neighborhood are spayed, medicated, microchipped, and ear-tipped to signify they are part of this unique program.
By looking at the cat when it's in the facility and seeing the health of its body and it's not compatible with human beings, it must know where its shelter is, it must know where food is, it has all those things. So really our role from an animal control perspective in a humane way is stop the cycle of breeding. In comparison to where we were 3 years ago, we're seeing 25% fewer cats coming into the facility. And that's not only adult cats, but that's kittens as well.
Trap, neuter, and release has become so successful in reducing San Jose's feral cat population that it has not only gained significant public support, but government support as well.
I am not aware of any problems with cats at the facility until recently.
Pete McHugh was a San Jose supervisor when a feral cat issue arose at the county-run Elmwood Correctional Facility.
Some of the employees at Elmwood had requested permission to establish a spay, neuter, and release facility, and on their own time, at their own expense, including the feeding and the spaying and neutering of the cats. But prior to this recent little episode, there were no problems or controversies associated with cats there. They've always been part of the institution. The current sheriff who used to work there has adopted one of the feral kittens that was on the property. So no problems until all of a sudden the current administration decided they were concerned. They alleged that there was a significant health threat to the inmates and the folks working there. We had our public health officer investigate, and he stated there was minimum health threat or problems. So it turned out to almost be a non-issue. I think somebody had a great idea, they thought. They figured they'd just get rid of the cats, and there was no real justification for it. Thanks to the employees out there that care, who initiated this program and are willing to continue to do it if they have the permission from the administration. And that permission has now been granted.
Trap, neuter, release is no longer a rarity in the United States. Currently, there are over 600 groups engaged in this practice, with more cropping up every day, from Maine to Florida, Chicago to Dallas, and Hawaii to Seattle. Pamela Staley started feral cat assistance and trapping in 2000, and to date, through her efforts, over 10,000 adult feral cats have been trapped, neutered, and returned, and up to 200 feral kittens a year find homes through her efforts.
I have been trapped, neutered, and returned for about 12, 13 years. I find the cats by way of either referrals through the shelters, or somebody knows somebody, or my website.
Pamela is well known throughout her community, and she responds to every call when people need help trapping, fixing, and releasing feral cats. Before she traps, Pamela explains the positive benefits of the Trap, Neuter, Return program with those that call for her help.
Basically, once I get the phone call, I go out and trap about 2 to 3, sometimes 5 days in advance, get them spayed and neutered, hold them for 2 days, and then I get returned.
The salvation for all her efforts is the Feral Cat Spay Neuter Project, a no-cost clinic that serves the Seattle area.
The Feral Cat Spay Neuter Project began in 1997, and it was a small group of people that really wanted to perform spay neuter on feral cats to help manage the population of free-roaming cats and reduce euthanasia in shelters. We've done over 77,000 cats so far since starting, and it began by having one clinic a month where they did about 200 cats. Now we're doing clinics 5 days a week. We're quite unique in that we only do cats. We do ferals, but we also do a feral prevention program, which is pretty much any cat that needs spay and neuter. We want to do it because we just want to reduce the number of free-roaming cats and reduce the euthanasia.
You know, I have to say in Seattle, we are very blessed with the Feral Cat Spay Neuter Project. And if they didn't exist, I wouldn't exist.
Even with successful trap, neuter, return policies in place, feral cats and their caretakers often find themselves in untenable situations. In San Francisco, this low-cost housing project was slated to be torn down, even though it has been the home of a spayed and neutered feral cat colony for nearly 5 years. Relocation of the cats is the only possible solution. Cindy Reuter has been the main caretaker of these cats for the past 2 years. Every day, Cindy or one of her associates takes on the task of feeding the few remaining feral cats in this now vacant complex. Today, she will undertake the lengthy process of trapping. The traps are set, and the last 5 cats are removed from the premises. This is the backyard of Liz Benishin, a resident of Palo Alto, just 30 miles south of San Francisco.
I don't know, every once in a while something will touch my heartstrings, and when I heard the story of these cats that needed to be relocated, I felt bad, and I thought, you know, I do have a pretty good place here, a nice big backyard, and I have other cats from the neighborhood that wander in the backyard, and I always have a little bowl of food out for anybody who wants it, because I see so many neighbor cats, and I thought it would be nice to have a couple of garden cats, and you know, I have my 5 in the house, and what's 2 more?
And during this process of the 6 weeks to 2 months in which they've been here,
Cindy and Liz, with the assistance of SPCA volunteer Jane Casey, are ready to release 2 of the cats from the housing projects, both of which have been in these large crates and taken in and out of this open shed for 8 weeks in order to get used to the new surroundings. Today, they will be set free, and hopefully, will find this large backyard attractive enough for them to stay.
you want them to face the shed, the little hut.
Yeah, the little hut.
You want them to face the hut.
Okay, got it?
Yeah.
Once the crates are positioned to face the shed and the bowls of food set out for them, it is only a matter of time before their curiosity and their appetite gets the best of them. These types of relocation, although carefully planned out and executed, do not always result in the cats staying put.
Now they're really doing well. They love to play together, and they roll around, and they play and bite each other's tummies, and they love to be together. What's interesting is they both eat out of the same dish. I think they really like each other and like to hang out together. I don't think it's really changed me. It's sort of given me another thing that gives me satisfaction, something to, you know, share a little bit of my life with somebody or something that needs me.
The greatest enemies of feral cats are ignorance and preconceived prejudice, and those that are most responsible on both fronts are those that assert that feral cats are responsible for the decline in bird populations worldwide, especially songbirds. Studies citing this claim, like the one titled The Wisconsin Bird Conservation Initiative, claim that domestic cats kill an estimated 39 million birds in their state every year, and that adding the kill by feral cats would increase this number greatly. Their conclusion: capture the feral cats and euthanize them. But organizations working for the protection and humane management of feral cats have a very different take on these reports.
What happens when it comes to cats, there's not been enough good sound research and studies. And what is being used is research that is very, very small. It's been discredited. And in that regard, the Wisconsin study is one of them. And so, but what the public needs to know is that the media loves controversy. And what they're going to do is they're going to pick up on and not do their homework and often not give everybody the facts that they need. And that's the point that people need to take away from this. The threat to songbirds and wildlife is very real. And experts who have researched the threats all point to a myriad of human activities.
We requested interviews for this film from a number of songbird researchers, especially ABC, the American Bird Conservancy. All of them declined to be interviewed. Yet this ABC video, posted on YouTube, offers a clear understanding of their position.
While we don't have exact numbers on the impact of feral cats, we do know that nationwide they kill hundreds of millions of birds every year. When you consider the fact that feral cats' diet is 20 to 30% made up of birds, then you know that there's going to be a fairly substantial impact on the ecosystem.
Numerous veterinary, conservation, and public health organizations do not support TNR. And some of the reasons that we don't is we see it as a risk to animal health, to public health. We feel it's an ecological disaster. We feel that it is a public nuisance, creates a public nuisance, and last of all, and perhaps most important, is we feel that it's inhumane.
Some of the Audubon Society and some of the songbird groups that are out there feel feral cats is really detrimental to their interests. And our answer to that is obviously that we think anything we can do to reduce the feral cat population is going to help their concerns. And there has been studies done where feral cats have been trapped and removed from the population, and it's proven, I think, that the feral cat population doesn't go down, and in fact goes up, because you've got cats entering the feral cat population because of the food sources and the reasons that feral cats exist in the first place, that are probably not spayed or neutered, and they are producing and reproducing. So there's some data that might indicate there's a possibility that trapping and killing feral cats actually makes the feral cat population going up, as opposed to trapping and spaying and neutering and then release back into the environment.
Christy Metropole is the executive director of Stray Cat Alliance in Los Angeles, California.
TNR and community cat programs, people feel good about it, and people can come together for this humane solution, and the outcome is less cats on the street. The outcome is less cats being born and less cats in the shelter. That's a win-win. But it's easy for certain bird groups to scapegoat cats. Well, they certainly can fundraise. They seem to always put out a press release, you know, about cats and how horrible they are in somewhere around November, December, and then they do massive fundraising. And it scares people. But the truth is that cats are not the enemy to birds. People are the enemy to birds.
You know, there's a lot of emotion on both sides of this issue. Cat people feel very sensitive to the suggestion that the solution to cat management is euthanizing cats. And bird people feel very sensitive to the suggestion that cats should just be allowed to do whatever they want, and when they see cats killing particularly protected species or rare species, it's very upsetting to them. And I think that's understandable on both sides. And again, you have two groups of people who care about animals And it's really just about getting past some of the emotion and getting to the more practical solutions that help both sides.
The interesting thing is that when there are communities that have looked at all the players of who's concerned about animals, many of them have brought those groups together, and they formed coalitions to address the needs of each species of the animals humanely. And when that happens, they have adopted track and return as their practice because it is effective and because it has been a better way for them, and they're not going back to the old way.
I'm certainly encouraged by the amount of work I do see out there that does occur between groups, for instance, that support bird conservation and birds that support helping cats in managed situations outside without euthanizing them. We've seen a few good examples of those, even on the shores of New Jersey, where we have the birds that nest on the ground, all the way here to the Bay Area of California, where we have protected areas where certain birds might migrate through, that local groups, local cat groups and local Audubon groups got together and came up with a solution that managed that cat group, but also helped provide a better outcome for the birds that were of concern in those areas. And those are really the successes that we need to be looking at as an industry, along with our friends who care about birds, to find ways that we put resources together to make sure that we can have a better outcome.
Are cats really a factor in the worldwide decline of birds? The prestigious Society for Conservation Biology addressed the issue, citing the real culprits as deforestation in tropical winter grounds, habitat loss, increased predation from wolves, mountain lions, skunks, possums, coyotes, foxes, and raccoons. Other major studies, from Cornell University to the New York Times, the Ottawa Citizen, and even the U.S. government, cite issues like altering breeding habitat, loss of summer and winter habitats, developing of beachfront property, climate change, including pesticides and contaminants as major causes. One listed as seemingly minor: cats. Other major factors include global warming and air pollution, environmental pollution, and global deforestation. In 1620, over half of the United States was covered with virgin forest. By 1850, half of the forest was gone, and by 1926, only fragments remained, until today, where virgin forests are almost non-existent. And this is a global problem as well. In Brazil, where millions of birds migrate annually, more than 3/4 of the forests on which they depend have been cut down. In Veracruz, Mexico, another bird migratory hotspot, deforestation has resulted in a 90% loss of habitat. The reason? The raising of cattle and the planting of coffee. Add to this the death of millions of birds annually from a rapidly expanding wind power industry. And the more than 1 billion birds that die from disorientation and impacting city windows lit brightly at night. Despite the massive incidental kill of birds worldwide, the problem of direct kill adds significantly to the decline as well. On the island of Cyprus, south of Turkey, millions of songbirds are killed annually, and it's not an accident.
Despite a clear legal ban, songbird trapping is still widespread in the Mediterranean, and Cyprus is undoubtedly one of the major trapping hotspots. Every year, millions of birds end up as umbelopolia, still a popular delicacy on Cyprus. Professional trappers have set up thousands of mist nets and lime sticks to get the birds. CABS, the Committee Against Bird Slaughter, is working together with local law enforcement agencies to locate and destroy these illegal trapping devices.
The Trap, Neuter, and Release program is not a phenomenon limited to the United States. Emma Clifford is the founder and director of Animal Balance.
3 years ago, the Spanky Project, which is a non-profit organisation in Canada, asked for Animal Balance assistance with a program that they were holding in Havana, Cuba. Since 2003, the Spanky Project has sterilised 80% of the dogs living in Old Havana. What's happened since is that the cats have become more apparent, and possibly their populations were on the increase. We've suggested, therefore, that they hold a trap, neuter and release program in Havana for the feral cats. We organised trainings for the caretakers of the cats in Havana, and we showed them how to trap their feral cat colonies. Very quickly, the caretakers were trapping their entire colonies, which was sometimes up to 50 cats in one colony, and they were bringing them to the clinic for sterilisation, and they were sterilising 40 to 50 animals a day. The project worked. What happened soon after was that the caretakers started to teach other caretakers how to trap cats, and very quickly the program became self-sustaining.
Feral cats nearly became a national icon in Canada. As one colony became so well known throughout the country, it became an Ottawa tourist attraction until it finally closed in 2012. Brian Keynes was the last caretaker of the Parliament Hill Cat Sanctuary.
There have been cats reportedly living on the hill for many, many years. I started coming here between 1995 and 1998. I really have no precise date because first when I came over it was only as a visitor. Initially, René Chartrand, the catman, he certainly was the most well-known of any of the caretakers, and he took care of them from 1988 to 2008. But in 1997, there was quite a bit of publicity for René when these structures were built. And the sanctuary was developing into a tourist attraction. René retired in 2008, and then I took over as a coordinator. And gradually we were able to get all the cats spayed and neutered. At that point, the numbers stabilized. The entrance for the Prime Minister to go into the House of Commons is right here. So we would see him, the volunteers would see him coming in the morning when we fed the cats. And I understand that he did come over. Both he and his wife are cat lovers, and his wife is very involved with the Humane Society. By the summer of 2012, there were only 6 cats remaining at the sanctuary. Ottawa winters are really rough. They're very hard on humans as well as cats. And the youngest cat was 5 and the oldest was probably 15 or 16. And we thought that for their well-being that it was time that they be housed and that the sanctuary closed down.
Brownie is probably the most popular and recognizable cats from Parliament Hill. Even on the Facebook page, people still ask about him. He was quite famous for his large size and being very friendly. Ottawa being the capital of Canada, there are a lot of visitors that come, official visitors, and the Dalai Lama came to Ottawa at least twice. He did visit Parliament Hill with a whole group of monks, and they asked to see Brownie up close. And they actually took pictures. He probably doesn't even know how important he is. I mean, Brownie's certainly the rock star.
The Colosseum in Rome, Italy. Built over an 8-year period beginning in 72 AD, it is considered one of the greatest works of Roman architecture and engineering. Today, nearly 4.2 million tourists visit the ruins every year. Yet, not all are solely interested in its history. Where once the underground rooms housed lions and tigers for gladiatorial games, today the Colosseum is populated by a different breed of cat. Near the very spot where Longinus and Brutus assassinated Julius Caesar on the Ides of March in 44 BC, the non-profit Torre Argentina Cat Sanctuary has set up its facilities to care for and adopt out abandoned Colosseum cats.
Lia De Qual and I got involved with these cats almost by chance. We were passing occasionally by this archaeological place where we just met the woman who was then feeding the cats. We felt that we had to do something to help her, and we began coming here as volunteers 1 day a week. Very soon we were completely involved, trying to do something more for these poor animals. First of all, we had to find funds. On the suggestion of an English woman, we began asking for help all the people who visited the ruins and seemed interested in the cats who populate them. Unbelievably, it worked. Torre Argentina is funded by the charity of people who approve of what we are doing, and also by the Anglo-Italian Society for the Protection of Animals. They are actually our main benefactors. The attitude toward people caring for cats is rapidly changing. People really realize that those who care for stray cats are not necessarily crazy old women without anything more important to do than care for cats.
Te lo prendo? Questo è il più bello di tutti, secondo me, perché è tutto piccolo e spennacchiato e c'ha tanta fame adesso e lo facciamo mangiare.
Our shelter is very rough and primitive, to say the least, but it's the best we can afford at the moment. It has taken us years to obtain the minimum for our cats. Presently there are about 250 cats scattered all about the place, in the covered shelter, but also amongst the ruins. In Rome there is an army of seriously determined women who feed and sterilize stray cats, mostly at their own expenses and at their own risk and danger.
Every cat at the Colosseum is spayed or neutered, and its medical and life history is entered into the sanctuary computers. Shot records are detailed by the volunteer staff, some of whom have dedicated their spare time for years to work at the sanctuary. It is a total labor of love, established by two remarkable women.
Viviani and Leah DeQuell were passing by, saw one of the cat women who was also an actress, and she was desperate. It was a woman who was now using her pension money every month to pay for the food because there were about 90 cats at that point. So I'm going to take you inside the shelter. We're in an underground excavation that is part of Temple D, and we've made a cat sanctuary out of it, so it's quite unique. Speakers? No, okay. Be careful, come in. 270 to 300. 200 remain with us.
While Torre Argentina's presence is not legally recognized by Roman authorities, its worldwide reputation for caring and adopting out its abandoned and homeless cats has made it in many ways a part of the Colosseum experience.
Get them adopted. Out of 500 cats that get abandoned, we get adopted, let's say 270 to 300. 200 remain with us until their death.
Visitors are encouraged to engage with the cats. It becomes one of the most important elements of cat adoption. By becoming members of Torre Argentina, visitors sign in to receive internet bulletins and newsletters of the group's activities. The Roman cat tours have become so popular that Colosseum tour guides mention them in their lectures as they take their guests throughout the ruin, where surprise interactions can also occur.
The essence 241 BC. Anybody know the significance of that date? 241 BC. Oh, those who live here must know this. Don't raise your hands if you live here. 241 BC ended the First Punic War when the Romans had defeated Carthage, and Carthage lost Sicily and Sardinia to the Romans. So this temple was built by Q in Lutatis BC. Lee, on the other hand, was built by an entirely different Lutatis Catalyst in 101 BC, 140 years later. Can't be the same man, same name.
The acceptance of these cats by tourists and citizens alike is a major factor in Torre Argentina's success in its care and adoption efforts.
Okay. Because they excavated down to this level in 1926, and the trees.
The cats are adopted mainly by Italian people, but also by foreign visitors who fall in love with them and decide to bring them in their countries. For instance, we have many cats in the USA, almost one for every state. But our cats live now also in Germany, Holland, Switzerland, Denmark, and France. The most important thing the public can do is to sterilize their cats. To make people accept the idea of sterilization is one of our most important aims. It would be marvelous if what we are doing here could affect the life of the 180,000 Roman stray cats in general, or the Colosseum cats in particular. But unfortunately, we are only at the beginnings.
What I've seen is cats actually bring communities together, and cats teach people compassion, especially an unsocial cat that you can't pet. It's the most selfless act of a person to feed a cat and spay and neuter a cat, of a cat that doesn't necessarily sit on your lap and purr and give you that love back. But you respect, and I respect and care for those cats that I can't touch just as much as the cats that sit on my lap. And their value in their life is not dependent on how they interact with people. This is an issue that can resolve. We just need everybody to step up to the plate.